And it was flipped?
Yeah.
How did you tell that? How could you know?
It was coming across my face like a mustache. Yours is fine.
Oh, well, the cord.
So when you're recording music, there's a left and a right. Oh, this is actually the left.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah. So like I could pan my voice, and I'm sure I could do it on that too. It's an interface. I could pan my voice to one ear, and like whatever, it doesn't matter.
Are we live?
And we're live.
And we are. We got the full setup here, bro. If you wanna mess with the recording and
no, I'm good. Few beers, waters.
No, we're loaded up. We're ready to go.
Gatorade.
Welcome everyone, TBD podcast episode 3. Here today with the hat's perfect, bro.
All right, cool.
The headphones are a little off, but
No. I do one ear.
Why? Just in case like something happens, you want to be able to.
I like to hear your real voice.
Oh.
Yeah, that's the thing. Anyway, thank you for having me.
Of course, bro. Frank Giacomo, Studio HB owner. Which, well, you explain it, bro. What is Studio HB?
Yeah. Well, first, thank you for having me on.
Of course.
Amazing. Studio HB is a design studio that focuses on the commercial real estate industry or services the commercial real estate industry exclusively. Started the business, I would say, more or less 8 years ago, and it's kind of been an on and off type deal with my business partner as we've been scaling. And now I would say we're fully integrated, full service commercial real estate marketing studio. Anything from offering memorandums, brochures, leasing flyers, stacking plans, custom
marketing.
Yeah. So you're bringing a commercial real estate property to market. We are the team that would help you shine that subject property in the best light.
Typically in that business, are a lot of those businesses just online, right? I would imagine a developer could work with a business like that who's sourced in California, Illinois, wherever.
We work, we could work national, and we service clients across the country. And certainly there's a benefit to working with a local company because it's in their backyard. If the property that you guys are trying to market is in the area where they reside, then I would say there's an upper hand to that. But we got our start working with national net lease groups who were transacting in more or less every state in the United States. So we've had exposure to every single market, more or less, through our tenure in the business. And through the experience that we've had, the number of projects that we've done, the type of material that goes into each of the packages that we put together or the marketing collateral, et cetera, is uniform, right? Like we understand that we need to show demographics, market overview, tenant overview. If it's a multifamily property, we're highlighting the rent roll, things of that nature. But
it's so much more than graphic design. You're having to pull numbers and demographics and data.
You can't go to a marketing agency and say, hey, I need your help marketing my property. They wouldn't know, right? You need to be exposed to a number of deals. You need to understand what the end user, potential investor is looking for in a property.
Interesting.
Right.
You have to have a real estate eye.
More or less, yeah.
You can't just be a graphic designer, or I guess you can, but your services include so much more than just graphic design.
I would say the difference between what we have to offer and just going to a marketing agency, certainly is the experience and dealing with all different types of asset classes, all property types, and then understanding, again, what the end user is going to be looking for. Whereas if you were to go to an agency, you could provide them with all of the material, all of the copy. You could provide the demographics, photos, etc., and say, hey, I just need you to assemble this in a nice brochure. But with us, we do all of the heavy lifting. So you give us the subject property, and then we would take a look at it, understand the asset class, where it's positioned in the market, and then we're able to pull out what the highlights are and what the benefits are to investing into a property like that, put it together in a comprehensive deck, and that allows you to market the property and shine it in its best light.
So more than a marketing firm, almost a partner in a sense of like you're doing a little bit of underwriting yourself. You're looking up data, demographics. You're actually helping that developer investor make a better buying decision. It's not just someone comes to you with a project, hey, I need renderings of XYZ. It's way more comprehensive.
Well, you can look at it like not every investor is a real estate professional, right? So not everybody that is buying real estate is somebody who understands the complexities of commercial real estate, right? So what we do is we take the information from the different groups that we work with, investment sales brokers, developers, et cetera, and we take the information and we're able to put it into visuals, infographics that make it easier for a potential investor to digest. Does that make sense?
Totally, yeah. Yeah, you kind of bring it, layman's terms is not the right word for it, but you know what I'm saying, where it's like you're making it extremely easy for a potential investor to pick apart a project.
Sure.
In terms of what it's going to look like, what it includes, the numbers on it.
Digest the market, the demographics, the financial overview of the property itself.
So we make it digestible. In that way, it is marketing where it's like you're helping that broker or the principal create some platform where a buyer / investor can just make a better decision on if they want to move forward or not.
Yeah, more or less, right. But then it goes beyond that, right? So where we started versus where we are now, not only could we help, with in offering memorandums and putting together brochures is a small part of what we do, just because of the exposure that we've had to different
beer 30, by the way.
Beer 30.
Yeah.
Is it?
It is.
You're right. Well, it's beer 27, but we're close.
Close enough.
We've hit a point where, we've serviced thousands of jobs at this point. And I mean, that's ranging from offering memorandums for an individual, who may be listing 1, 2, 3 properties a year versus an investment sales group that has 30 agents and they're doing very high volume, and we've built out a robust marketing system for their team. The experience that we've gained and gathered through completing so many jobs puts us in a position where we're able to, again, take the subject property, understand what the highlights are, the benefits of investing in it, turning it around. But what we're moving on to now is actually positioning the entire group, right? Teasing out a narrative, understanding what the specialties are of a particular group, team, developer, et cetera, and then helping them portray that through their visual brand, their digital brand, all of the marketing collateral they're pushing out at different conferences, events, and then identifying what their strengths are, right? And helping them really shine the strengths of their group in the best light to differentiate them, in the market. And what I found and what I find really interesting is there are a lot of groups who don't care at all, right? There are a lot of, I've spoken to
the old school guys, they're not a part of that whole game.
No, right. And it's like what we were talking about earlier. So it's like, there are groups, or let's say, and when I say groups, I mean mom and pop, smaller investment sales shops.
Which probably makes up most of the investment space.
There aren't, right. And whole nother topic, but there's not a lot of people or a lot of teams in our space, or they're far and few between, who actually understand the value of positioning their brand, right? There are a lot of people who say, you know what, I'm comfortable where I'm at. I'm doing, X amount of deals a year and that pays my bills and I'm good with that, right? And those aren't the clients that we work with, right? We work with the groups who are saying, we have 20 agents right now, but our goal is to have 50, in the next 2 years. And we're looking to do this amount of volume. We're looking to submit, X amount of proposals in the next year. And those are the groups who are really forward thinkers saying our brand matters, right? Because we're trying to attract the top talent. We're trying to scale the business, right? And we care when people come to our website and see what we do, what we look like, the way that we're positioning our agents. And those are the types of clients that we work well with because they understand the value that we provide. And I'm not surprised when the smaller shops say, nah, we just care about the numbers, right? Like I'll stick a photo of the property on, in PowerPoint, and I'll put the demographics in there and the rent roll, and, the right end user will see the value in the numbers. And that's just not the type of group that we're looking to work with.
It sounds very similar to the residential side of things, where there's kind of a lazy agent today, especially here in Tampa, specifically in this market, any good real estate market, where the reality is if you have a phenomenal property in a great location for an appropriate price, you can put it on MLS and it's going to get sold.
Right.
So how far do you take it? Well, there's not a lot of motivation to take it that far and spend a lot of money on marketing and graphic design and advertising and all this stuff if the property's going to sell in a week anyway.
Well, and then so to segue that, right, it's like, okay, great. You could take this highly desirable property list it, and it's going to get sold, right? Because everything shakes out, it pencils well, the numbers make sense, or, you know, the end user really wants to live in this home. But if you're going out there and you're marketing that property to the best of your ability, right, and you're shining extra light on that property, well, what does that do for the next guy who wants to list their property with you? They see the way that you're showcasing, you know, your current listing, and they say, wait a minute.
That's a good point. That's
the group that I want to work with, because they put a lot of time and thought and effort into the way that they're showcasing my property. And same in the commercial space. It's like, when you're trying to win exclusive listings, one of the biggest pitches that you can offer is, well, this is how we're going to market your asset, right? This is we're not just going to take, you know, whatever photos you got, slap it on
LoopNet.
Right. You know, with a night, like a PowerPoint that, you know, my assistant who does 90 other things just slammed together with some copy.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, what are you guys, what's the extra mile? Where are you guys putting extra effort in? You know, and where's the extra value that I'm going to get with you versus, you know, the next guy? And sometimes, a lot of times, I would argue that's a difference maker. It's like, what's your team? Do you have a marketing team? What is the strategy? Once I give you my listing, what are you going to do with it?
Right.
And I'm sure.
Where's my hard-earned? You know, I'm spending 3%, 6%, whatever it is in between.
Yeah.
I'm spending that on you. What are you going to do with the money?
Right.
You're just going to slap it online, and then you're going to take the whole chunk of change.
Right.
A seller wants you to put up money. You know, they want you to spend money on marketing.
They want to know that you're investing in their investment.
Because they want the best price for their property possible. They want that exposure.
And so the group that, you know, my business partner and I had gotten our start with out of Manhattan, they put a ton of value, or they hold a lot of value in the marketing materials that they're putting out, their brand, right? Their brand is everything to them. And I think what I had noticed, you know, being a young buck, 21, working in that office, not knowing a thing versus what I know now, is their ability to scale and accomplish what they've accomplished in the last 5 years, let's say, right, is far beyond any other group, you know, that I've had an opportunity to speak with, because they've put so much into their brand. And because of that, they've attracted the best young talent, right? Like, they're able to, and mind you, the new agents that they're bringing on, it's commission only, right? And they have a team of 30 plus agents now who are working commission only in commercial real estate. I would say more or less the average time to transact, you know, as a new agent, at least a year. But they're able to hold these individuals and keep them on their team because they offer so much support. Once these younger agents get a listing, they know that their listing is going to be cared for and tended to. And that's a draw for, you know, even someone like Tyler, right? Fresh in the game, to know that once he lands a listing, that it's going to be cared for and tended to properly. It's much more likely that he sticks around with that group and grows with that group.
And like you said, too, other newer agents are going to see what happens with a new agent in that brokerage. Oh my gosh. Wow. You know, I might not get a listing next month or the month after, but if I grind and get a listing, my brokerage is going to have that infrastructure in place to take care of me and service me and get more deals.
It's building confidence in your team, you know, for them to go out, because it's a grind, right? Like, you know it. One thing that we can certainly agree on is that it's a grind both on the resi side and the commercial side to gain an exclusive listing.
Oh yeah.
Right. And that's just half the battle, because you get the exclusive listing. It's like, well, what are we doing afterwards?
Well, and then how do you take advantage of it? You know, how can you use that listing to market not only the listing itself, but yourself? I think marketing on a listing is a reflection of who you are as a broker.
Your group, right.
Your group.
And then what do you do once it closes? How are you leveraging, you know, your ability to close to help you gain future exclusive listing opportunities?
Interesting. So your company helps with that. Your company is a marketing, kind of advertising, design studio.
Yeah. Evolutionized into a full, I would say we are a full service marketing and design agency that focuses solely and specifically on players in the commercial real estate space.
I love it.
And now, you know, to segue all of that, right, and the reason that I'm here is to discuss a project that we're currently working on.
Yeah, so this incredible rendering, which has been done in other iterations, not as well as you guys have done it.
Thank you.
Of course, what we posted on our Instagram page is going to be the first iteration of an entire comprehensive design of all the projects in Tampa's urban core.
Right.
Which is super exciting because there's so much happening here. God, you picked the right place to move to do what you're doing.
I'm saying, yeah. So the idea behind it, right, naturally, because we're new to town, right? Met you 2 years ago. Business partner moved here 4 months ago.
2 years ago?
Yeah, it's been 2 years now. I know. Hey, you're old, man.
Thanks for the reminder.
It's all right. It's all right. You got a ring on your finger. You're living life. When we moved here, we said, you know what? Okay, we service clients nationwide, but we want to be local. We want to work. We want to be hands-on with the development teams that are here building the city that we've decided to call home. Right. And so, you know, it's one thing to call, you know, all these developers, try and establish a relationship. It's another to create some piece of eye candy that announces, right?
Is the project, in a sense, a gift to the community you live and work in and do business in, where it's like, you know what I'm saying? Where it's like, hey,
I hope people take it that way.
People, I think, at the very least, you think it's cool. It's really interesting to see a comprehensive list of everything going on. There's a lot of projects in the works.
And to visualize it.
To visualize it and to help it come to life
and
in
I think
a real way.
Even, you know, even for people who don't live here, if they were to get their eyes on it, right, it's showing, it's like, well, what's the future value of the Tampa market, right? How can I visualize, you know, anyone that's on the fence, it's like, well, what's really going on there? Is it, you know, everything that I'm hearing about? Because Tampa's received a lot of media coverage, right? Here, some of the Arizona markets, like this is unequivocally one of the hottest markets in the United States right now.
Oh, yeah.
And people are interested in understanding, well, what's actually going on there? And I could tell you right now, when I was in New York, I had no idea. Tampa, what about it? You know, Tampa Bay Lightning, Tampa Bay Bucks, cool, but I had no idea, right? And then you get here and you see all of the different projects going on, right? You know, just the time from when I had moved here, the Heron wasn't even built. You know, the addition wasn't here, and within that time frame, right, year and 8 months or so, you know, you have an entirely transformed downtown business area of Tampa Bay, right? And it's almost difficult to comprehend the level of development, the volume of development that's going on. And so we felt like it would be a resource not only to, you know, the civilians living here, but also the developers, right? It's like, it's cool for them to see, okay, you know, this is where our project is going up, and this is the activity that's going on around it. And yeah, so our goal is to build out and continue to iterate on what is Tampa going to look like a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years from now, right? Through research, understanding what's being proposed, what's already being built, and then, you know, showing a comprehensive rendering of all of that activity. It's
interesting too, kind of, you mentioned your business model, what you do for commercial, essentially brokers and principals. You know, it's kind of like what you're doing for Tampa itself. Tampa itself is your case study. You're building out almost like a sales pitch for Tampa for other capital to move here. There's a ton of investor dollars moving to Tampa. I'd imagine if I'm living in a different state and thinking about deploying capital somewhere else in the Southeast, and I saw that rendering, I would go, holy shit, like, I want to invest there. Look at all the development. Look at all the growth.
And then on top of that, you know, and we'll get into this, it's like, you know, it's one thing to see developers that have been here their entire career building here, but when you start to see outside capital flowing into Tampa, right? That's when you as an outside investor can go, all right, there's a play to be made here, because you're starting to see institutional money. It's the beer will do it to you.
Yeah.
I know. All right, I'm glad you did it first. You broke the ice. But when you start seeing institutional money flow into Tampa the way that it has over the last few years, that's when an investor is going to get more comfortable getting in bed with investment opportunities here locally. And yeah, I guess it all ties back to, you know, if you're looking at this rendering, you're saying, okay, well, you know, I see all of these luxury towers going up. I see Silverstein from New York pouring dollars into Tampa.
Developer of the World Trade Center.
Right. And they're New York company, right? And that's primarily, their ballpark.
The article, I believe it was in the Business Journal, the local business journal here. They talked about Silverstein, and Silverstein said something along the lines of, we can't wait to have a footprint in Tampa.
Right.
The excitability about developers from all around the country moving into Tampa, taking on different projects, there's a lot of hype. This is a horrible analogy, but in a weird way, look what happened a few years ago with like NFTs and crypto. Like when capital is deployed in one space, firestorm. And I think that's what's happening here. So for you guys, a local company,
more value in real estate than NFTs, my personal opinion. Anyhow.
Oh, dude. Yeah. That's a whole different
podcast. You see
podcast.
all the rug pulls in NFTs.
Of course, bro. Real estate's going to be here for till the end of the time. But
right. Yeah, so you see the money coming in, and it's more appetizing to get in bed with investment opportunities.
And for you guys to visualize that, I think is super important. So do we have that pulled up, or can we pull that up, Tyler? Because it's just incredible to look at it. Not only as a real estate guy myself, not only as a Tampa native to watch our city grow, but just the cool factor. Look at this shit. Like, look at the amount.
We like to call it eye candy. Yeah, we call it eye candy.
So, Frank, what are we looking at here?
Okay, yeah. So, to be clear, iteration 1, right?
Let's disclose. Yeah, we know that there's more developments proposed.
I mean, yeah, we went over it. Again, full disclosure, Garrett and I have looked at this a number of times, and we've identified a number of towers projects that are still to be added. And I mean, man, I think we covered 12 new projects that aren't even featured here.
We probably sat, for an hour talking about projects beyond what's already shown.
Right. So what you're looking at now is, and we have a team of researchers that we said, hey, listen, we're trying to showcase all of the new development projects going on in the downtown metro Tampa area. And so this is what we had come up with, right? This is probably 2 weeks in the making. And I think the most recognizable here by any Tampa native or anyone residing here currently is Gasworks.
Right.
Darryl Shaw, shout out. And then you have the Ybor Harbor, which is also Darryl.
Also Darryl Shaw. So if you guys are following along and watching this on YouTube, Spotify, if you're just listening, you can find it on our Instagram page. But it's what do you call this? Like a graphic design of our urban core.
Yeah, it's a comprehensive rendering of future developments in downtown Tampa.
And on the far right side, you'll notice a bunch of buildings. All of those buildings, essentially, with a few exceptions, are one developer, Darryl Shaw. This is 2 separate developments. One is Ybor South, also known as Gasworks. I don't know the official name for it. There's been a couple tossed around. The other one is Ybor Harbor, kind of a new one that was announced, I guess, a few weeks ago. Darryl Shaw has been amassing land in Ybor for quite some time. I want to say he owns, it's got to be 50, 60 plus acres in this one area. You'll notice too that Water Street Phase 2 and future phases are not shown. Just imagine as you're looking at this, Water Street, if Water Street was added to this, the amount of blue new buildings to the urban core. What are we looking at, Frank? Are we talking about a 3X, 5X of the amount of infrastructure, buildings, hotel, retail space, residents? Tampa.
There's a common theme here, and the common theme is luxury. The common theme is luxury towers being built, right? And what a great opportunity to sit in on the BizNow conference today with, the developers of Pendry, the GC behind Gasworks and Ybor Harbor, and their outlook on Tampa is that the product type that is going to be most favorable and opportunistic and where you're going to see the most volume is luxury, right? And that's a play on what we were discussing earlier, right? There are 950,000 people who had moved to Tampa in the last year, right? And the average salary is $200,000. Okay. So it's telling you that there's a wave of people coming in, and it's not, it's not your everyday individual. It's affluent business professionals. I would say primarily from the Midwest and the Northeast who, initially were spending 6 months here, maybe half their time here, half their time in New York. And now with the level of development going on and, all of the major employers that are coming to this city, they're saying, wait a minute, there's an opportunity for me to actually have a life here, park my life here. And, the density is increasing.
That's what's really exciting is the actual density. What we're looking at here, once all this is built, it might not be this real estate cycle. We've had a long bull run here. This could happen in the next 10, 15, 20 years. It could be a long-term play, but I think what we're really looking at is a full-scale city to the tune of Boston, to the tune of San Diego. Walkability, public transit, heavy.
Right. Well, what if you were to look at the difference between...
Frank, hold on. Tyler, how are we on time, number one, and number two? Can you get on the computer and look up a couple things real quick? Number one, sorry, go ahead, Frank. But I wanted to look up high net worth individual, what they classify as that, because I saw a statistic that said...
I don't know if 200 grand is that these days.
I think it's 250.
Okay.
It's like 250 in income and then other assets or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, you could also base it off of net worth.
But I read a statistic that was like they took the top 5 states where high net worth individuals moved to. Number 2 is Texas, and it was like 5,000 and change high net worth individuals moved there. Behind Florida, to over 20,000.
Yeah.
Number 2 is 5,000. So it's like it's not just there's a bunch of people moving here. It's people who are high net worth with money. A lot of people complain about affordable housing, and it's very unfortunate. It really is that a lot of people are being pushed out. Rents are high. It sucks. But in the same way, you have to understand when these people are moving here and these luxury condos are built, this is a lot of new tax dollars for our area. Drive around Tampa. Don't you see the potholes? Don't you see the issues with our school system? Sidewalks leading to nowhere.
It's going to take a lot of time.
This is going to help with that.
But it's also going to take a lot of time with the population growth that's already happening, it's going to take a lot of time for the infrastructure to catch up with the level of development that we're currently seeing. Then, you mentioned affordability. Another big issue that, a lot of these developers and a lot of employers are dealing with is affordability for their employees, right? There are a lot of employees, and especially this day and age, just having gone through COVID and, a lot of people transitioning from work from home back in the office. I think a lot of people are opened up to a lifestyle where, they want to be closer to home. They want a better work-life balance. And what you're going to see, right, with the very affluent wave of individuals that are pouring in here, is a lot of these employees of your bigger employers are going to be priced out of local living, right? So, it's very desirable to live 5 minutes from your office, right? But those types of people are going to start getting priced out. And so then you're flirting with the idea of, are we going to be able to tie down top talent and keep them here? If we can't provide, or if they're not able to afford, right, a lifestyle that allows them to have a 5-minute commute to their office. Affordability with the employees of the giant employers that are here and moving their offices here, it's right, like you have this influx of capital, investors, just people moving here for a new life, right? They're going to price out a lot of these employees. So that's something that they're going to have to combat. Just thinking about the level and volume of development that's going on. It's like, how do we well,
what are we trying to achieve too? Like I think the reason that a lot of people are coming here and looking for walkability is because they're coming from larger metros that have walkability.
Good point.
You
right?
know what
because,
I'm saying?
I mean, it's like
you're not going to go live in the suburbs, bro. You're from Manhattan. You know what I mean?
I'm saying, and that's the life that I'm accustomed to. I walk out of my house.
But it's what you want too.
Right. I walk out of my apartment in Manhattan and I have everything I need right at my fingertips. And the people that are moving from that type of metro, downtown city lifestyle are looking to achieve that same type of lifestyle, right, in a more tropical area, right? I mean, naturally.
Where it doesn't snow. And by the way, 0% state income tax. So Tyler, pull up that high net worth individual. So the definition of a high net worth individual is someone with liquid assets of at least $1 million. Now, there were 20,000 of those. I believe the statistic was in either 2021 or 2020. 20,000 of those people moved to Florida. The next number 2 is 5,000. Wow.
Yeah.
Because those people bring along with them, they're purchasing high-end real estate, high property taxes for our schools, police, roads, etc. They're also bringing with them businesses and, like we discussed earlier, capital. They're going to be investing in real estate. They're going to be investing in other things.
They're also just going to be spending more money.
Correct.
Right?
Restaurants, you name it.
Everything.
Retail.
So what that plays into again was the sentiment of the entire conference this morning is luxury. Tampa is going luxury, right? And the biggest product type that we're seeing, luxury high-rise, multifamily. Again, a talking point today was the convergence of luxury hospitality and multifamily, right? Like giving somebody the ability to have a long-term lease or long-term rental while maintaining the amenities of a luxury hospitality or luxury hotel, right? And we're going to start seeing
long-term lease. Interesting.
Well, like the Addition. I mean, the Addition is sales, right? It's condos, right?
But they have a hotel component,
right? But you're
referring to an actual rental, something
rentals,
you rent.
right? I think, and I can't remember the name of the woman who was mentioning this, but one of the hottest product types that we're going to, and even mentioned as a new asset class, right? It's mixed use because it's going to be, there's a hospitality portion, and then you have the ability to rent, 3, 6, 12 months. And that's the way that they're going to keep, it's like the ability to manage the downside risk, right? There's flexibility when as the market shifts, as the market changes, they're offering two different product types that allows them.
This happened in 2008. So there was actually a boom here in Tampa. I think the last time there was a boom was obviously, like there was in a lot of different areas right before the recession. Shit was going sky high, and channel side was blowing up at that time in 2006 through 2008. And Grand Central at Kennedy was really like a luxury condo at that time. It was developed to be a luxury condo. High-end Viking appliances, beautiful kitchens, gas ranges. They did things at a
These
higher...
are rentals?
They created this development at a higher level of finish to sell them out as condominiums. The market crashed, and then they transferred it from a condominium over to a rental building. And then as the market picked back up, they started sales again. And that actually happened to a couple different buildings here, and I'm sure all across Florida, and I'm sure all across the country. But interestingly, kind of what you're saying is that's a new strategy for Tampa as a luxury market for developers to build kind of in that rental space so that they can stay flexible. And if the market were to, for example, go back to where it was a year ago, a frenzy, okay, cool, we can switch it to condos and sell them out and make a high dollar. Oh, the market's softening? Cool, we can rent them out. It kind of, the developer can stay a little bit more flexible. It's interesting that that's their approach now.
Yeah, right, because the question that was asked is, what is your outlook? What is Tampa going to look like over the next 5 years? What is going to be the hottest asset class? And again, luxury, but a lot of the keynote speakers were mentioning mixed use is going to be the move. And I think we're going to start seeing a lot more projects like the Addition, and whether that's, condos, built for sale or built to rent. I think having the short-term rental play or just, extended stay hotel type deal, right. Is going to be a safer product type for them to start building, because it softens the downside for them.
Well, you've even seen a lot of developers doing a build to rent versus a sellout.
Right.
Like there's a project across from Midtown. It's townhomes. I think they originally started that project as a sellout and
switched to rent.
I think our friends over at Serenity Capital have talked about that too, where it's like, hey, we want multiple exit strategies. We're not necessarily building it to sell out. The facts are, if you look at all the numbers, there's a ton of people moving here, and it's a safer bet. It's a little bit less risky if I build out a development that's for rent. Then I can cash flow it and sell it at a good cap rate on the back end and exit and make a good amount of money. Or, hey, the market's great. We've built it to a high level of finish. Let's sell it as a luxury condo, townhouse, whatever development.
Right.
I think a lot of developers seem to be more flexible than they were versus the last real estate boom in Florida back in 2008. If you look at Miami, if you go to Brickell, now Brickell's a little different. A lot has changed there in the past few years, but traditionally, a lot of those buildings in Miami are single use. They're condominiums. And if you go to Miami and you go to downtown and Brickell in that area, there's a walkability factor, but it's a lot of driving around. It's a condominium with a big parking garage. It's a parking garage with a condo on top. That's kind of what you see everywhere in Miami, and Tampa's kind of not taking that route. They're going more mixed use.
Simple analogy or comparison is Miami, New York have a baby, right? And it's birthed in Tampa, right? It's like, and what's not showcased in the rendering is, and something that I think is super exciting for locals here, is redeveloping and extending the Riverwalk.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Because now you're going to have the ability to walk all the way through downtown into Ybor. Yeah. And right now, which I've done the walk many of times, right, there's a lull. You know, you get to the area of Ybor Harbor, Gasworks, there's nothing there.
Right.
But when that's finished, right, you have retail, you know, you have a little bit of everything that's going to keep you occupied on that entire walk. Mm-hmm. And I think, and this, I guess, ties back to infrastructure, right? And something that...
And federal dollars, a lot of federal dollars coming here too.
Well, we've spoken about this, right? Like I always say, I took for granted the train system that I had access to in New York. I could live an hour, I could live 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours outside of Manhattan, and I could not have a car and still get to New York or anywhere, you know, in the immediate MSA, mm-hmm. right, by train. You know, and I had my complaints riding the train, whatever, you know.
Well, a car is a premium in New York. I mean, that's like,
yeah.
You got a car in Manhattan or a driver.
No, but like I grew up 30 minutes north of Manhattan, and for me to get into the city, I just could walk to a train station, right?
And that's what people did. That was the norm,
right? And so I think if you can incorporate a train system that is able to take you from downtown Tampa to downtown St. Pete to Clearwater,
Tampa Heights, the whole thing,
and
imagine hopping on a train from downtown Tampa and going to the beach in 25 minutes.
I'm saying, and you don't have to drive. Yeah. So, and back home in New York, you know, you're drinking on the train going into New York City, and you get the same type of the same deal in like Philly or Boston, mm-hmm. right? They have a train system.
Any dense city,
right?
And I think it's interesting you're saying this because I think that's what Tampa is becoming. It's not just this regular suburban city that you've seen grow up over the past few decades. It's almost becoming something that's never been done before, except 100 and however many years ago when those cities that we're speaking about, Philly, Boston, New York, et cetera, were
what's the
developed.
Difference? What's the difference between Tampa and then the three metro areas you had just mentioned, right? It's the location, right? It's like you can have the walkability of New York.
There wasn't air conditioning back then, so people, they're like, fuck those.
You can have the walkability of New York and then live in a tropical area. You could have access to the beach year round, right?
Tampa has a unique opportunity because of that fact. Imagine a city as dense as Boston, New York, Philly, you name it, right? Someplace where you're walking around. You walk out of your apartment to go to grocery stores, etc. Hop on a train to get around town, but you're around palm trees. There's no snow and there's no income tax.
When I came here,
it's such a pull.
2 years ago, I had I was nervous to come here, right, and have build a career here.
You heard the stories.
No, it was just like you come here and it truly, you feel like you're on vacation, right? So I remember my first few weeks here, waking up and just wanting to be outside, wanting to experience the outdoors of Florida, because I'm used to that Northeast lifestyle. I had 6 to 8 months of cold, right, where I was spending all my time indoors. But you get here and you're almost nervous, like, am I going to be as productive? Because I'm staring outside to the ocean, palm trees. It's like, do I want to do any work, But to that same note, the amount of activity going on here, the amount of businesses pouring in here, the amount, like, even you mentioned Serenity Capitals, right? You have so many groups similar to our guys over at Serenity who are coming here from the Midwest, and they're grinding. And the same energy that you hear about New York, where it's like, the city that never sleeps and you're constantly, in this hustle and it pushes you. It's like, I do feel like I have that same exact energy here in Tampa.
It's so interesting.
It is, right? Because
it's so interesting.
I would encourage anybody with an entrepreneurial spirit to come here because it's it's like the present day gold rush, right? It's like there is so much opportunity, not even just real estate, right? There are technology companies coming here and all different types of industries that are pouring in. It's like you have an opportunity to actually build a life here. It's no longer a vacation destination. It's a place where you can build a life, you can build a family, you can build a career. And that to me is what is most exciting about the city. It's no longer a destination, you know, for a short period of time, even 6 months, right? Which some people would, you know, it's half a year, consider it's a long period of time. People are choosing to come here and stay here. And any outside investors, anybody who is considering, you know, pouring money into the city, I think just off the sheer volume of development alone should be optimistic about where they're placing their dollars if it is somewhere, you know, in Tampa.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think Tampa has always had a little bit of a metropolitan feel to it, even in the
You would know better than I.
Yeah.
You know, you're a lifer. I'm 2 years here, so.
Like I remember, I don't even know what year it was. It was like late 1990s. My dad used to work in the Bank of America downtown for, at the time, a law firm called Morgan, Calling, and Gilbert. Okay. Now it's Morgan and Morgan.
Oh.
So, yeah.
We all know Morgan and Morgan.
Right. And I remember I would sit in his office and look outside, and I would count the taxi cabs that went by. And it was just like, you know, in the late 90s, Tampa was just such a, it was like Suitcase City. It was like downtown was a 9-to-5 destination. A shitload of people worked downtown. It looked like Manhattan, like people crossing the street with briefcases and suits and taxi cabs, and like Tampa has always had that metropolitan vibe to it. But what's great about the Tampa Bay Metro is we still do have that destination. We still have St. Petersburg, which has an artistic, more cultural vibe than Tampa. It's a little bit more laid back. Tampa's more of a city, business, get stuff done, New York attitude. And then what are we, like 25 minutes from the beach?
Right.
So this area is unique in the fact that it does have everything.
It's pocketed.
It's pocketed. You have water surrounding you. We have probably the best airport out of any major city in the country.
Would agree.
Shout out TIA. What a phenomenal place that is. Yeah, super easy to get in and out.
Huge ups to that airport, right?
Huge ups to that airport.
Yeah. And I mean the proximity, right? The proximity is huge. Now, with that said, we can't be all positive on Tampa. We're certainly experiencing...
We got a long way to go.
If this is the only downside that I can make note of right now, I'd say we're on a pretty good track. But the congestion is certainly, you know, and I could say this from just my short 2 years of being here. I've certainly noticed, you know, a higher level of congestion.
You're on a motorcycle. What do you have to complain about?
Yeah, it's very easy to weave in and out. But, you know, the very few days I take a car, it is a tough journey back home sometimes, right? Yeah. And when I say tough journey, I mean it's 10 minutes, right?
That's the thing in Tampa. This is such a dense city, and there's a high barrier to entry. If a developer wants to come in and build a project, you're not doing it in the city. You're going out Brandon, you're going Wesley Chapel.
Now you are, because...
But everything is like 10 minutes, 15 minutes away.
Right. Well,
as it sits.
It's harder to compete, you know, in our downtown area, again, because you have institutional money pouring in, right? So those types of deals are going to go to your
Silverstein.
Your larger groups, right? But yeah, you're going to start seeing now, and you could attest to this because you've been here forever, is, you know, the gentrification that's going on, you know, immediately outside of the city, I'm sure is cleaned up, you know, since you've
heavily.
Heavily. Yeah. And so, you know, and I don't even want to call them small-time developers, right? There are still guys who are able to complete, you know, a 400-unit project, just a larger scale project. You know, they're going to start going outside of the city, right? And then that's when you start to draw the equivalents to a New York, right? Where you have a lot of people living in Connecticut commuting to New York. You have a lot of people, you know, Westchester, Hudson Valley, et cetera. And that's the Brandon, the Riverviews, you know,
exactly right.
The suburbs outside of Tampa. And I don't think that's a bad thing. Like,
I don't think it is either, because some people choose to live that lifestyle.
Right.
Some people don't want to be in an urban environment. They want to be in the suburbs, which is a little bit more manicured and it's more spread out and it's a little bit more quiet.
And that's offered here. You know,
it is,
and that,
by the way, those areas are blowing up too.
Right.
It's not like it's just the urban core.
Right.
Like the rendering you have only shows the urban core.
And we'll move on to the exterior.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if you scale that back out, look at Midtown, look at the West Shore Marina District, there's development happening everywhere in the metro.
Even Hyde Park, you're seeing units built, right? Like, so we have to accommodate the density, right? The population that's moving here. And there are so many areas outside of the urban core that are an excellent place to start a family, right? An excellent place to live. So anyhow, let's go back to the rendering. And Garrett, I'm thankful for you, right? Just being the market wizard that you are and turning me on to all the projects that are up and coming.
Yeah. Let's go through them.
Why
not?
My question for you is, what isn't featured here that we can, my group can start to highlight, right? And then what can people start to be, or start to get excited about? Like what's being built here?
Well, let's start from, so in channel side. So the light's blocking me. I believe there's another blue building on the other side of Water Street, which is there or no? I think that's 400 Central, which is an office building. Water Street had an office building plan. The first office building they did was 1001. It's the same building as Boulon is in. Boulon. French word. I don't know how to say it. Something like that. It's good though. I went. It's amazing. Phenomenal.
Is it?
So good. They have
it is Boulon. To confirm. It is Boulon.
Boulon. Yeah. Phenomenal. Lobster pot pie we got. Crab beignets, filet mignon. All amazing.
This is with Cody, I'd hope.
Definitely check it. Of course.
It's not ish, right?
Who else?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
I'll take you on a date, Frank. Don't worry.
Please. What is so let's talk about Water Street.
Okay.
Right? What's going on in Water Street, right? There's 3 phases currently that we're aware of, right?
Well, they've called it phase 1, phase 2, future phases. I don't know. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So to what extent are you familiar with those projects? What's going on?
Pretty familiar. I mean, essentially what they have created now is phase 1. It's the little block that they have. From what they've rendered on their website and in terms of square footage and build out, it's about 1/3 of the total development at full build out. The lot right across from Sparkman Wharf, that is supposed to have a big tower on it, parking garage on the ground.
Do we know unit count?
We could look that up. It's probably on the Water Street website.
Yeah.
And then right north of the current phase 1, what the hell's the street? Cumberland? What's the street that they just went through? I think it's Cumberland.
Is this the one? So something I think is important to note is what's going on with the train tracks downtown, right? We're doing away with that.
Well, this is a part of it. So in phase 2, there was an old flour mill. That flour mill's been there for a long, long time. The developer of Water Street bought them out. They've since moved and gone to their new location. All of that's being dismantled. That train yard was a part of that. So they've shipped in and out flour. It's no longer happening. That'll all be essentially turned into a new street grid. So it goes back to what we were talking about earlier with walkability and infrastructure. They're doing a true street grid. They're not making this area for cars. They're making it for people.
Right.
The road system through Water Street is really one way.
Well, how do you combat?
It's one car on each side, right? So 2 lanes. But the sidewalks are as big as the street. They're focusing on walkability, and I love the fact they're doing this. They don't have to do that.
But they do.
But they do because the people moving here want that. There's a demand for it.
What's the affordability, right? So let's say, one thing you could think about in New York is you don't need a car, right? And what's pretty expensive, You get a new car. I mean, it's expensive, right? So a way to combat affordability is walkability, right? It's like, hey, if you can come here.
That's a t-shirt right there.
I'm saying, if you can come here and you no longer need a car, right? You have your grocery store across the street. You have your pharmacy, walking distance, right? Then you're saying, okay, well, I no longer.
That's a huge point. Everyone needs to realize that.
I'm saying.
Because when people talk about affordable housing, density is the solution to affordable housing. Imagine how much money you'd free up if you could eliminate your car.
A lot.
Oh, well, my car payment's $300. What about gas? What about insurance?
Right.
What about tire problems and oil changes? And think about the thousands of dollars you're saving. You talk about affordable housing, what you're really talking about is a lifestyle.
I'm saying.
You're talking about a dense city walkable lifestyle.
So we can maintain the luxury, right? And we could combat affordability with doing away with expenses, that you won't need if you move to our urban core, right? You might want to flex a little bit on the amount you're paying for rent or, what you're taking on as a mortgage. And you get the ability to do so by giving up, things like having multiple cars, right? Maybe you go from 2 cars to 1, right? Even there's a huge cost savings, and it would make up for it if you were able to have a walkable lifestyle in a downtown urban core. And a lot of people are seeking that type of lifestyle, right? I know personally, I prefer to live in a heavily dense metro area. Not only is it what I'm used to, but I just prefer that type of energy, especially as a young guy trying to network, trying to meet people. That's what's important to me.
So Water Street, Frank, I don't know if you know this, it's actually amazing, but they've created a physical rendering of their entire project inside of SPP's office. I don't know if SPP vacated that office. It's in the Industrious. It's like up in the Industrious on the second floor of Sparkman Wharf. They occupy a different area.
They are still there.
They are still there?
Yeah, I actually...
Tyler, scroll up real quick.
I walked into their office because I was so curious. Because when we were looking for office space...
Is this SPP? Yeah. Well, they would be a great connection for you. I think they should work with you and do some renderings with you because I think your company is has a lot to offer, especially being local. Right there, Tyler, Light Act.
Yeah, you're there.
On the right. Yeah, click that. So this is a full-scale rendering, and then if you scroll down...
Well, let's see if we're able to... Okay, so...
so this might be the company that did that.
See if they offer this. Hey, just a quick plug. My company does all this. We can do all this.
12 HD projectors, 2 Light Act media sources. This is an interactive projection, a 3D model of the city of Tampa, showing essentially what Frank and his company has created, but in a physical form. And if you're interested in development and what Tampa's going to look like in 15 years.
I don't know what I'm looking at. Right? Like I got.
Well, scroll down, Tyler.
Okay, here we go.
Keep scrolling until you see. There it is. So it's an entire rendering of the future phase. And then Tyler, if you can zoom in on the actual Water Street portion, which is on the right. Now, just so people, if you're just listening, essentially this is showing the entire urban core at a full Water Street build out. And basically what it's showing is an entire replication of downtown Tampa by, honestly, I would say over double. The amount of buildings, the amount of work that Water Street is putting into downtown, you're kind of talking about twice the size.
What towers are being
of Tampa?
What towers are being highlighted here that don't currently exist?
So let's go back to your rendering and I'll show you.
And then maybe if we could have Tyler just showcase with the mouse where what areas, because not everyone's as familiar with the market as you are.
Yeah, absolutely. So Tyler, you can kind of see Water Street on the left hand side. All those new buildings, the very dense area, right?
By Emily.
Right. So that's Water Street Phase 1. That's complete. That's Heron, Asher, Cora, the new USF Medical School, 1001 office building.
Is Asher in addition same group?
It's all the same group. What do you mean the same group?
Oh, it's all Water Street.
Oh, it's all Water Street.
Water Street. Okay.
Yeah, it's all the same developer.
Well,
SPP is the developer.
Think about that, right? You have Asher, right? So you have rentals. You have it directly attached to the addition, hospitality, right? You have a luxury hotel.
Talk about mixed use.
I'm saying, yeah. and that's what I think anybody living here can expect over the next 5 years is more products that tie that in.
So Heron, it's 2 towers. I think each tower has a pool on top. Huge balconies, super dope.
Heron's too?
Heron,
yeah.
Heron is where the Greenwise
They have a Greenwise directly underneath.
Which is incredible.
And what does that tie into?
Exactly.
Walkability, right?
Absolutely. That one of those towers was supposed to be a condominium. One was originally supposed to be rentals and one was supposed to be a sellout. They switched it to pure rentals.
Right.
They've already, I believe, refinanced a lot of these buildings. And I do have a guest I want to have on that worked on the financial side. Shout out Nick Halloran. He's the man. I don't know if he
Lender?
can just... No, he was a financial guy for SPP.
Got it.
I don't know how deep he can dig into it if there's, of course, confidential information. I'd love to have him on to talk more about it. But when they essentially first underwrote this entire project, Look at because this is dating back to 2017, 18. They started construction, I believe, late 17 on the USF building.
Got it.
So imagine when they first underwrote this project.
Oh, man.
Then the growth since then. And now you go to Water Street and it's freaking people everywhere spending money, restaurants packed, all the apartments are full. I guarantee I can't imagine their financials and their equity multiple and the refinance they've done. I think it would be extremely interesting to dig into the financials.
Well, I would be curious and this is not Tampa on its own, right? I mean, construction costs over the last 2 years have been have increased exponentially,
massively.
Timelines have been drawn out exponentially, right? And it's like, well, you originally underwrite the project 2017, right? It's like there's no
different world.
There's no way for you to forecast the exponential increase in construction costs, timeline, things of that, labor costs, right? It's like,
did Jeff Vinik get lucky, or does he and Darryl Shaw know something that we don't?
Well,
Look how bullish these guys are in this city. Look at the scale of their projects.
But when you talk about someone like Vinik, right? It's like, they can afford to miss the mark on their forecast, right? They could, their projections, they have the wiggle room, right? Maybe construction costs go up. Well, they say, okay, well, we're so bullish on the project and on the market that we're going to keep going. You're also noticing there are a lot of developers locally who have been developing in this market for a long time, right? And I could speak to this. Isabella, right, my fiance, her family, they build hotels, and they've been in this market for years, right, before anyone was here. And there was no way for them to predict, what was going to happen, right? And so you're seeing, and what I'm seeing is, the budget is inflated, right? Like they've gone over cost, right? And they couldn't predict that, labor, materials, procurement of materials has probably been the biggest issue. And what they were talking about at the conference today, build now, buy now, procure your materials
regardless
now.
of debt, regardless of price,
because they're not coming down, right? It's like you have a
how
deal.
Could it look at what's happening here.
Exactly.
How could, if you purchased a piece of property in this urban core right now, I don't care if you overpay, whatever the price may be, look at what's happening. If they build all this, how could the price go down? It's impossible.
And it won't. So, oftentimes developers, as they're building a project, they might say, okay, we're going to hold off, on procuring these materials because we think that the costs are going to come down. And the sentiment, and these are the big players in the space, right? These are the guys who are building, these luxury towers. They're saying, it's not coming. It's not going down.
Right.
The costs are going to soften. They're going to come, they're going to slow down, right? The inflation will slow down, but they're not going down. They're not going back to what they were 3 years ago.
Impossible,
So procure your materials now, buy out the deal now, secure the deal, and do it.
So I think kind of going back to what we were speaking about earlier with, it's not only growth. It's not only, there's a bunch of people moving here. It's high net worth individuals. Look at the Ritz-Carlton and related group and the success that they've had. That entire building was sold out before they started construction.
They're on both sides of the spectrum here, which I find very interesting.
They're going to make a killing
because they have the affordable housing project in West River,
related urban,
right? Related urban, and then they're building one of the most luxurious towers that have come to Tampa, right? Ever
the most,
right? They have the Ritz-Carlton on Bayshore, and for those of you who are not from Tampa or have never been to Tampa, Bayshore is some of the most sought after real estate in the entire city. I mean, the views are incredible. The commute to the urban core is
minutes,
and it's a beautiful drive, right? So it's like
legendary, really.
And anybody who's in the real estate space is certainly familiar with Related Group, right? And again, it's like you see these players, right? These are global players in real estate who are dumping money into this city. It's like, man, if you're a retail investor, you're small time, or you're trying to take down a few units, or you're trying to do a giant rehab, whatever it may be, there is certainly opportunity here, and the acceleration of the growth that we're seeing it should make you feel secure, right? It should make you feel like, okay,
confident,
confident. It's not like you're not investing in St. Louis, Missouri, or a smaller city. It's like this is one of the hottest markets in the country right now.
Undoubtedly.
Yeah. And everyone is just racing here, right? Trying to secure something.
This too, like, you know, when I look at this rendering you've created, Frank, and thank you for doing this, by the way.
Of course.
Just like a personal thank you. I've always believed in this city. I'm a little biased. My family's been here a long time. I've always thought this city would blow up. What I'm most surprised by is the timing of it. I didn't think it would accelerate this quick. I believe COVID had something to do with it. A lot of people flooding out from some of the other areas, specifically
arguably
California,
a blessing.
New York.
Arguably a blessing.
Arguably
for the city.
For us, absolutely.
Right.
It just accelerated growth, but it's go ahead.
I just think what we have seen, right? And I came here in 2020, right? So, you know, I was maybe at the crux of everything going on. But what really happened is light was shed on a market that did not have the exposure that it deserved.
Correct.
Right? Like the real estate here arguably was underappreciated until something major happened and people started saying, well, what are my alternatives? Right? And, you know, you could go to the East Coast of Florida, right? Which is arguably way more saturated and dense than the West Coast.
Well, two things there, Frank, specifically to ask you. You've first of all, where did you work? You worked at The Real Deal.
Anyone who's in commercial real estate
knows about The Real Deal,
be familiar. Yep.
Real estate news company. So you kind of have an insight, and the reason why I say that is you have an insight on other markets around the country.
Certainly,
obviously.
Yeah.
Do you believe? What do you think? I mean, has there ever been real estate development like this in an urban core? Look at the scale of these developments. If you were to continue and create and finish this rendering, it would almost look like, no, there's no way. Like, there's no way. This isn't real. How could this be possible? Has there ever been a city that has 5x'd its downtown? And then, by the way,
population density.
This isn't like, you know, multiple developers coming in and building individual towers, which it is. There is that in Tampa that's happening. Look at the size of some of these developments. Water Street was a game changer for Tampa. Phase 2 is going to be incredible. We can talk about that too. Look at Darryl Shaw, what he's building. There's also
some could
West
argue
River.
He spearheaded.
100%.
Spearheaded.
100%.
You see someone who has such a commitment to developing this city. That's what. All right. So it's like
the vision.
You have Darryl Shaw who opens the door, right? He says, "I'm bullish on Tampa." He starts dumping money in here, right? And what does that do naturally? It attracts your outside money, right? They go, all right, you know, what's actually going on here, right? Mm-hmm. And it piques.
Yeah, what does he know that I don't?
Yeah, it piques curiosity, right? And that's where you start to see the influx of, you know, again, outside capital, institutional money pouring in here. And it starts with an individual visionary. Some might right, like arguably Darryl Shaw is a visionary. The amount of money that he has invested into our urban core, you know, even the markets outside of our urban core, right? It's like, okay, well, what is actually going on? And at this point in time, everybody is trying to get a piece of the pie. Everybody's trying to get involved with what's going on in Tampa.
It's just a perfect storm.
And so, to your question, have I ever seen development like this?
I mean, as an example, Hudson Yards in New York.
Hudson Yards, sure, right, and yeah, that's certainly a good case study. I don't think you've seen this level of development with this velocity, right? It's like yeah, you know, Hudson Yards, small pocket in New York City. Here, you're seeing, I mean, look at what we have rendered, and then think about when you and I met about a week ago, the number of projects that aren't showcased here.
Right. So we should let everyone know this is, I mean,
iteration one.
This is iteration one. We went over multiple projects and met for an hour, talked about all those projects, essentially doubled what's on the rendering now, and there's more to come. So, Frank, would you say this is a third of what's planned? I mean, a quarter of what's planned in our urban core. That's what I would say. Well, a quarter.
I mean, we met. You were able to identify, and this was top of
my head. Right? Yeah,
like you know, more or less freestyling. We just met, and we were trying to understand, you know, where could we expand this thing? And you were able, just off the top of your head, to identify 12 projects. Now, Granted, some of them are still in the proposal phase. So,
Yeah.
we don't know what's actually going to be followed through with. But yeah, I mean,
That's the thing, though, Frank. You think Darryl Shaw is just going to say, I don't want to do this anymore? Probably not.
yeah,
he's going to move forward.
Do we think he's done here? It's like, I'm
exactly.
No,
And do we think he's not going to build what's proposed? Of course he is.
Right.
Look at the investment. Look at the capital. Look at the vision.
And then,
do you think Jeff Fennett's going to finish? Of course. Do you think Silverstein's going to back out? No. What are they going to go do in New York? Developers have seen what's happening in this market. They're flooding here. It's not a question of if all this is going to be built. It absolutely will. It's just a matter of, is it going to be this market cycle?
And if it's not built by the group that's proposing a project now, it's another group that's going to come in and pick it up, right? So
look at what's happening in the space. Back to Serenity Capital. Shout out Serenity. Love those dudes. They're kind of picking up what some of the larger developers might be offloading. National developers, D.R. Horton, they're offloading some product because they're building thousands of homes and they don't need some of those smaller developments. Smaller developers are coming and eating up those deals. In the same way, why couldn't you have a large national developer exit a condo project and have another local
pick it up,
Southeast pick it up? Absolutely going to happen.
And because there's still there's still value. They're leaving value on the table, right? And it's a win-win for both parties, right? They could exit the deal, sell it at a surplus, right? Make a profit on it. And then the next guy who comes in and picks it up, right? There's still a ton of upside potential. And then one thing I want to touch on before, we wrap up here is it's not just our urban core, right? You look at what's going on south of the urban core, right? South of Kennedy. I mean, look at the Marina Point project.
Yeah.
$1 billion condo project.
Mixed use,
immense
shopping,
amount of retail going in,
apartments, everything,
and that's touching and reaching a totally different end user, right? That's where you're saying I could retire here, right? It's a way
correct, right? It's a different
product type, different.
It's more
vibe
of kind of what you
entirely.
said, the Florida vibe. You're on the water,
but how quick is it to shoot over to Bayshore and rip up to
10 minutes?
I'm saying
15.
So then now you get the best of both worlds. You have your privacy, you have your backyard, you got rooms for the dogs to run, cats if they're outdoors, and you can maintain that lifestyle that maybe you had in the suburbs of New York or Boston or
But do it around coconut trees and sunshine.
I'm saying, hop on a boat, cruise over to St. Pete. There's just and the work-life balance here is incredible, right? Like there are so many entertainment opportunities, right? I mean, you're a beach person, you shoot over to the beach, you want to hop on a boat, there's so many opportunities to do so. Great restaurants popping up left and right. You have a bunch of different retail strips, Marina Point, you got Hyde Park, you got Channelside. Even if you wanted to maintain a level of privacy, you can move to Harbor Island, right? Davis Island.
Right.
And that's where I think you can start to draw the similarities to Manhattan, the way that they have their boroughs and the different neighborhoods. You have your Upper East Side,
Different
you have Greenwich
vibes.
Village. Yeah. Here we have the same thing. You have Channel District, right? You have Davis Island, you have Harbor Island, you have our urban core, you have Hyde Park, right? And
now Water Street.
And now Water Street. And they each offer their own allure. There's their own vibe, different restaurants, different cuisine. You have exposure to a little bit of everything. One thing I do, coming from New York, I'm a bit of a snob here, the food, There's been a pickup here, certainly. I'm hoping to see a little bit more. I mean, but
we got a pretty good food seed. Come on, bro.
No. We do. And, I've been to many cities, right? And I'd certainly say we compete. It's not New York City yet, and
you know what we need, though? I'm just going to say it in front of all 7 viewers right now. We need like a high-end, like a Tao, like a Japanese. Noble Rice, I know. Noble Rice is great. I love Noble Rice.
What, are we live right now?
What do you mean?
Are we live?
We should be. Tyler, are we live? Okay, we're live.
Oh, we're live. No, I meant like live streaming right now.
Oh,
you said
no.
all 7 viewers.
No, this drops tomorrow.
Forget what I said. All right, continue.
So what I'm thinking, this is my idea, and I'm happy if someone takes it, but almost like a meat market, loud, fun, cocktails, large-scale restaurant, Japanese style. Doesn't exist. Let's make it happen. Someone do it.
One of my biggest issues with Tampa right now is the
Don't say pizza, you New York
No. You know what? I've actually, I'm not a pizza snob. It's bread, cheese, and sauce, right? Like it's pretty hard.
It's not that complicated.
Yeah. No, I think the real estate, even where my office is, right? Harbor Island, AMSO, Jackson's, it's cool. It's cool. I think there's a real opportunity to capitalize on the retail on the waterfront. And I don't think,
I agree.
I don't think, if there's, again, we talked about, very minimal negative parts about Tampa, but I think they could utilize the waterfront property way better.
Here, totally agree. And here's another point. Since you're bringing up negatives, this is a huge negative, and it's a little frustrating, to be quite honest with you. The city, in a lot of ways, needs to step up the game when it comes to finishing off the damn infrastructure, the potholes, no sidewalks, the curbs that are all broken, the alleyways that are torn apart. We need to do a better job as a community, specifically the government here, take these new tax dollars and fix the freaking roads. Today, Frank just mentioned about the infrastructure at the Biz Now conference, how they mentioned there's a ton of high net worth people coming here. Those people are going to freaking leave if they're driving their nice cars over the potholes. The potholes are a joke. It's ridiculous. We need to focus on that before we start to.
It's not downtown. That's where you start to,
No, but dude, like some of the nice neighborhoods in South Tampa that people pay $20,000-$30,000 a year in property if I'm paying $20,000 a year in property taxes, I shouldn't have to drive around in potholes. It's a joke.
Yeah.
The property taxes on this building are quite a bit for the size of it, and I got to freaking avoid potholes on the way here. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. We're right at the. Again, you're not seeing any of that downtown. Like downtown's pretty taken care of.
Correct.
Right? You're seeing that more in the suburban markets outside of the city, right? And I would say
you want to call this the suburbs. I mean, I see what you're saying. It's outside of the urban core, but we're right off Kennedy and Howard.
But there's single family homes. There's a lot of neighborhoods here, and,
you're right.
And I think that will be
You see what I'm saying though about to keep the high net worth people here.
I ride a motorcycle. You don't think I'm alert when it comes to potholes.
You better be.
That could be the end of my life right there. But yeah, no, I get it, and I think that's something that they're considering. You have to think, right? It's like the level that the city is being developed. Nobody has all the answers, right? Nobody is able to accommodate, right? Like, hey, we need train systems. We need to pave every single road here. We also need to make sure that all of these developments are going up, and sticking to their timeline. And there's just so many things moving at once, right? It's like Rome wasn't built in a day. That's the way that I see it. It's like have the pothole. I've never been affected by one. Right? Do I see them? Yeah, but I've never been directly affected by one, and that's okay with me, And I think that's something that, Mayor Castor is certainly aware of, right? She knows.
She's from here. She's lived here her whole life. She gets it. She knows. And like you said, man, it's not done overnight.
Yeah.
It's not done overnight. But
I agree with you. I agree. You know what? My parents' property taxes back where, I grew up, incredibly high, right? Much higher than what you're paying here. And same deal. My town, I don't think they paved the roads for, 10 years. They paved them every 10 years or so, and the tax dollars were incredibly high. It's something that you experience everywhere. I get it, but I think infrastructure is certainly something that any major player in our space right now, anyone in our local municipalities are aware of.
Well, exactly. The idea that that's not on their radar.
Yeah,
I'm just an angry guy that pays a high tax bill. That's like these damn you know what I'm saying?
Get it.
But and it is on their radar. It's just a matter of we need to focus very heavily on making this city a beautiful place to live. Period. And it doesn't matter what neighborhood it's in. And the city has actually done a very good job. If you go up into North Ybor and some of the more underprivileged areas of the city, they've created it to kind of be a more walkable, safe place for pedestrians. I think that's extremely important, and they've done a good job at that, putting in crosswalks, wider sidewalks, bike lanes. There's a complete streets. It's called Project here in Tampa. The reality is the city is doing what they can.
Yeah.
What I'm just saying is we have a lot of money flooding in here, and we need to spend it in a way that kind of looks backward and fixes kind of the BS that's been going on for the past existence of the city.
Well,
like what I'm saying is we don't need a new fancy park. We need to take the money and go backwards and fix some of the infrastructure that we have.
Sure. It's like, making sure that we have a sound base, right, for the city. Yeah, exactly. That's what the infrastructure is naturally. My question for you, which is off topic to what we were just discussing, but what would you say to, and I think this is a sentiment that, a lot of investors face, right? It's like, am I late to the party?
Yeah.
Right? Is the growth happening so quickly and everybody's already here where, outside investors are going to become a little less excited to put money here because they feel like the opportunity is dried up? And you being an investor in the city, right? Because I know that you've had a number of projects here. It's what would your message be to anyone who is, and let's say on the fence, right?
The question is always like, should I wait? Are interest rates going to go down? Is the market going to go down, et cetera, et cetera?
Am I competing with too many players?
Am I competing? Is it saturated? Should I wait? Is there a recession coming?
And what do you think? Because I don't have an answer for that.
Here's my answer, and it just circles back to your rendering. Look at the rendering. Look at the investment. Look at the capital moving here. The only bad time to invest in real estate is if you just sit on the bench and you don't invest at all. Get in the game, find a good deal. Even if you overpay, we touched on this earlier, even if you overpay right now, there's a lot of future value. Be a long-term player in Tampa. Tampa's blowing up.
What product are you most bullish on? And this was actually an interesting point brought up today as well. There are a lot of single-family rentals.
I was going to say single-family.
Single-family rentals have become so hot.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, I think the idea that you can pay, frankly, $6 million, $8 million, not $8, but $6.5 million is a phenomenal home listed on Bayshore Boulevard right now for like 6.5. I think the idea that you can get on Bayshore Boulevard, this is going to sound fucking crazy, but under $10, $15 million is a joke.
Sure.
I think agree. One day.
Well, what is Bayshore?
When I'm 50, 60 years old, when what this rendering has exposed.
We're talking astronomical numbers, right?
Dude, look at any other market. Look at California. Look at Palm Beach. People are paying $40, $50, $60 million to live in the iconic areas of the city. That's Bayshore Boulevard. The idea that you could buy a $4 million house on Bayshore right now,
it's very appetizing, right? I mean, I don't know what those insurance premiums look like, but probably a little
Bayshore is interesting though because you can get pockets where you're not in a flood zone. There are some areres on Bayshore where it's like,
we don't need to get into Hurricane Ian.
Flood zone's a whole nother thing.
It wasn't even touched. My thing with Bayshore, and I think we've certainly spoke about this in the past, is everyone who owns on Bayshore, everyone, pretty wide net I'm casting here, but a lot of people that own on Bayshore have probably been on Bayshore before Tampa was Tampa today.
Yeah, you can look at the property records. People have been there 80s,
forever,
70s.
And they're just watching their property appreciate 10x, shout out Grant Cardone. But like that was an investment that they made years ago. And I mean, the gain that they could realize on that is, and they're probably never letting it go.
So the property the Ritz-Carlton Tower was built on, those were old townhomes.
I'm saying,
that developer went in there and bought those townhomes individually over the course of however long, a year plus, and built a Ritz-Carlton on top of it.
Hey,
who would have thought in the 1980s when those townhomes were developed, hey, one day I'll sell to the developer of the Ritz-Carlton.
What do you do? Ritz, condos, hotel, right?
But they're not doing a hotel component.
They're just doing condos only. Really?
2 condo towers.
I thought they had a hospitality portion.
They do not have a hospitality component. And that's why I think that Ritz-Carlton project is so attractive. We've kind of been talking about how as a developer from an investor standpoint, that type of a mixed use where you have a hotel component as well as residential is a very attractive model. I think as a buyer, as a residential guy, as a real estate broker, I'm actually more attracted to the idea of a Ritz-Carlton that's residential only. I don't want to deal with hotel guests. I want it to be very exclusive.
Well, the types of buyers that you're attracting to a Ritz-Carlton condo,
Yeah, but it's the same as the Pendry and it's the same as the Edition. Both of those projects have hotel components. The Ritz-Carlton is 2 towers, 2 residential towers, and then they actually have Ritz townhomes back there. There's no hotel component. Well, with the same services though, so they still have the valet and the concierge and
2 things I want to touch on is one is the amenities, right, which was a huge discussion today. Man, I can't think of what I wanted to bring up. Brain fart, but what I think we're going to start seeing here is, and the way that you maintain the values on the projects that are being built is the amenities, right? It's like
totally.
It's like you can maintain a hotel style, luxury hotel resort style living in your long-term residence. And what we were seeing and what was being talked about by a lot of the developers today, like people at the, the developers behind the Pendry, it's what amenities are we offering, right? And what you're seeing now is a tech stack, right? Like you have, and we'll use the Pendry as an example, is like they're able to now partner with all of these different technology companies. And I use technology lightly because it's a service, right? But you're going to start seeing, room service at your, at your residence, right? It's
what
like,
the heck are you paying $2,500 a month for at an HOA fee?
Right. So, you start to build in these amenities, right? And that's a ton of value that's being added.
Also goes back to...
And why isn't that happening already? Why don't we have room service? Like, why is there not room service at certain luxury buildings? It
goes back to what you mentioned earlier about people moving from dense metropolitan areas, i.e. New York, Manhattan, coming here, expecting the bellman service, expecting that high level of service, which is emulated in those buildings in New York. You go to New York, you get the bell guy, and you
have a doorman building,
and I think that
laundry service.
And as Tampa becomes more of a metropolitan, dense, walkable city, people are going to demand those amenities and those services in their buildings.
And that's what's going to justify the higher values, right? Like that's what's going to justify the higher rents, property values if you're buying a home. And when I say home, I mean buying a condo in our urban core or on Bayshore, right? It's like, well, okay, I'm willing to pay top dollar. What's included, right? And I think a lot of these developers already know that. They're saying if we want to keep and maintain the price point, that we've penciled, on our deals, right? Because, they're underwriting the deals. They're saying, well, what value can we attract based off the current market? What rents can we bring in, right? You say, all right, well, how do we maintain that? And it's by offering those amenities. It's by having a walkable city. It's being able to get your laundry done in your building, right? Being able to order food at, 12 o'clock at night or 1 o'clock in the morning when you get back from the bars, right? These are things that bring it all full circle and help you maintain the value. And I think not only developers here in Tampa, I think that's the way that the world is moving in any significant metropolitan area, right? It's like, how are we going to accommodate our residents and how are we going to make their life better, the right word, more attractive, right? And keep them here, super interesting. I think, the mixed use, to have the hotel product tied into a condo product, just a super interesting product type that we really don't see a lot of here in Tampa. And
it's new. It's on the radar now for sure.
If you scale that back, right, and we talk about the single family homes, right, it's like, it's great, everything that's going on, luxury building, you can maintain a level of privacy because that's the status that they're evoking, right? It's like, you can come here, you can have a beautiful lifestyle, you're gonna have a ton of privacy, you have all these amenities, right? Now you start thinking everything south of us, all of these neighborhoods, single family homes, and something that we haven't touched on is you have a lot of investors coming in, primarily fix and flip guys, right? Who are coming in and trying to build an Airbnb portfolio. Now, where does that become problematic? Well, your local residents may not want Airbnb properties.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's going to be on the radar for the government too. They're going to get a lot of complaints about that, and they already have. I mean, a lot of municipalities.
How does that work?
They've essentially. I know like Sarasota has rules on it. St. Pete has rules on it. Tampa has rules on it. You may
not want to raise a family next to
an Airbnb who's loud and the whole thing.
Yeah, pool. People are going there to party.
Dude, listen, we got to do this again. I got a date with my wife. I got to roll out. I think it's just, dude, at the end of the day, at the end of the day, it's like we've got a lot of people moving here, and that comes with a lot of moving parts. It comes with traffic, like you mentioned. It comes with, we got all this new tax dollars. What do we do? Well, let's fix the roads. It comes with, well, now these investors are coming in and they're going to want to do Airbnb, and let's create regulations to control that. It's like so much is happening at one time. We have to figure out a way to control the growth in a way.
What a task, right?
What a task. So it's like, I don't know. It'll all work itself out.
Yeah. Anyway, so stay tuned. We're certainly going to release an additional iteration of the rendering that we showcased today. I think it'll be super interesting just to see what the potential skyline could look like in the next few years.
Where can people find you if they want to follow along?
www.studiohb.io, which is a new thing. I'm not sure if you're familiar with IO. It's a big tech thing. And then same with Instagram. Follow us on Instagram. It's at studiohb.io. We'll be posting all the work that we do there. But yeah, stay tuned for this rendering. I think it's super interesting. And I think, anybody that's looking to invest here, this should give you some confidence that you're putting your dollars into a, correct investment.
Frankie, love you, bro.
Love you too, dog.
You're the man. Peace out.